in an inevitable escalation capping weeks of unrelenting embarrassments obliterating any remaining shreds of public credibility. Prince Harry's accommodation reservations for the upcoming Invictus Games were unceremoniously cancelled this week by the very five-star London hotel he intended using as prestigious home base. The humiliating defenestration represented the exact cosmic rebalancing many insisted was long overdue, considering the disgraced Duke's perpetually incendiary conduct, systematically burning every bridge still tenuously anchoring his former life. According to bombshell leaks, the property's manager ultimately reached a breaking point after Harry's uncompromising list of diva demands and security protocols proved not only unreasonable, but potentially illegal. "Look, we take great pride maintaining discretion, shielding our distinguished guests' privacy at all costs, even when they're behaving utterly reprehensible or making colleagues' working lives outright unbearable," the general manager confided under strict anonymity, given anticipated pyrotechnics this cancellation could ignite. But at some point, self-preservation instincts simply kick in, rejecting liabilities too unhinged for seasoned hoteliers sanely accommodating tantrums from the likes of Bobby Brown or Richard Pryor during certain inebriated Bel Air residencies back in the day. From the earliest reconstructions, trouble began brewing between the fading Celebutant's team and hotel staff almost immediately upon receiving Prince Harry's rider specifying accommodation particulars utterly incompatible with any commercial hospitality establishment's operating codes. The Sussexes reportedly issued a 45-page memorandum requiring elite private security forces operating completely independently from municipal authorities, which immediately raised red flags across multiple jurisprudence domains. These included potential firearms violations, untraceable personnel clearances evading oversight stipulations, illegal discriminatory hiring practices demanded exclusively along racial lines, and suspected breaches implicating various national security concerns if armed mercenary militias somehow infiltrated by terrorist proxies. So let's just get this out of the way up front. Yes, maybe most seasoned staff anticipated a few eccentric hospitality requests, considering the Duke's deteriorating reputation for grandstanding before inevitably melting down, the hotelier continued while visibly gritting teeth, just reminiscing the humiliations. But asking my front desk associates coordinating sourcing private infantry battalions capable repelling actual marine artillery barrages without provoking sovereign diplomatic breakdowns. Well, that's the exact shade of bonkers triggering instinctual, burn before reading, reflexes awakening across entire industries after too many harrowing experiences not learning our lessons ahead of time. More specifically, Harry's memorandum allegedly issued non-negotiable contractual obligations conscripting military-grade paramilitary troopers proficient with Israeli Taver bullpup assault rifles and American Barrett .50 caliber anti-material sniper systems. The proposal further stipulated requiring elite contractors vetted by unspecified intelligence services, allowing all operatives inbound passage bypassing customs declarations concerning foreign assets entering UK borders under sovereign jurisdiction. Perhaps most ominous, leaked excerpts revealed explicit prerequisites that auxiliary companies must contain sufficient ethnic minority slates, including prominent local nativist guerrilla formations accustomed to opposing Crown authority across former Commonwealth dominions. While nobody's harboring illusions about certain inevitable inconveniences accompanying celebrity security retinues during any high-profile engagement, requiring armed mercenaries cleared to traffic across borders with heavy weaponry evading export restrictions solely toward consolidating ethnic factional loyalties willing to potentially insurrect against civilian governments, well, that's something altogether different, taking matters far beyond industry standards, one anonymous concierge veteran remarked while acknowledging colleagues often felt honor-bound alleviating logistical complications for truly exceptional guests. I mean, we all recognize many folks with gargantuan egos seem attracted to hospitality professions providing captive audiences. But outright dictating hiring policies, prioritizing potential warlord militias, demonstrating antipathy toward state sovereignty itself? No amount of prestige immunizes operations from that kind of seditious lunacy. Tragically, the original memorandum's breakdown only represented opening salvos in an escalating bureaucratic morass pitting dueling legal teams and credentialed consultancies seeking to reconcile Harry's uncompromising rider against UK civil statutes governing everything from workplace discrimination criteria to outright prohibitions against stockpiling ordnance caches. Despite some initial attempts by hotel representatives exploring compromise solutions honoring Sussex security priorities while containing protocols within tolerable risk management parameters, correspondence indicates the Duke eventually shut down all flexibility whatsoever on most objectionable terms. Multiple leaks depict Harry's negotiators completely stonewalling attempts moderating ethnic exclusionary militia provisions, despite being reminded conscripted paramilitary forces avowedly ideological toward overthrowing the crown inherently conflicts with domestic security oversight priorities. If anything, Prince Petulant actually expanded grounds for contention by appending clauses stipulating unchecked permissions allowing mystery subcontractors brokering private military companies unilateral oversight issuing criminal exculpation letters and nullifying liability protections for UK jurisdiction counterparties. I don't think any of us senior personnel acquainted with high-stakes bromades grasped the full delusional extent initially until Harry's people started disseminating unsolicited background dossiers containing potential vendors' grotesque portfolio histories. Another source shuddered while revisiting the materials now provoking PTSD among trauma survivors. Some featured legitimate CIA mercenary companies like Blackwater, and hey, at least those ghastly war crimes just slaughtered impoverished Iraqis barely qualifying as conscious entities before Trump ultimately pardoned them, so that's just business. But the rest, well, how many non-consenting civilians do hotels traditionally expect permitting warlords responsible for butchering villages with machetes onto their grounds specifically for purposes destabilizing constitutional governments? Particularly egregious examples reportedly included militant outfits prominently advertising credentials parceling genocides against domestic Muslim Dinka populaces in Sudan in exchange for Chinese mineral concessions. Other resumes highlighted contractors' leadership cadres transitioning from Hutu militias eradicating Tutsi, cockroach, civilians in Rwandan pogroms toward specializing in sodomizing young boys conscripted into coltan mining slavery throughout the Congo's war zone regions. Yet others apparently gained notoriety administering ethnic cleaning offensives liquidating Tamil civilians through maximum atrocities like systematic bayoneting infants in Sri Lanka on behalf of majoritarian Buddhist nationalists currently burning mosques across the island. In short, the privatized belligerents forwarded mirroring neo-fascist accelerationist ideals completely anathematic toward responsible hospitality principles. Look, we're not soulless ghouls utterly dissociated from human empathy ourselves. Every concierge strives delivering uncompromising luxury accommodation experiences translating affluent consumer expectations into reliable satisfaction without unnecessary bloodshed or crimes against humanity, the general manager protested while evidently straining against blanching. But this particular iteration willfully insisted his desired caliber of hospitality must involve turning our boutique French Quarter footprint into a literal African bush war staging ground complete with child soldier regiments being permitted amenities accessing civilized society they personally mutilated beyond recognition. While Harry's caustic associates initially reacted toward staff objections by doubling down escalations into overt hostility more befitting regional Khmer Rouge satraps, hotel leadership eventually determined drawing unyielding hardlines themselves provided only recourse before finding their prestigious institution irredeemably compromised beyond salvaging. As correspondences grew increasingly toxic through multiple rounds of bad faith accusations alleging racism for declining business relationships monetizing atrocities, managers recognized unavoidable trajectories spooling into inevitable public relations debacles setting their brand ablaze. Once the negotiating process ruptured to unrecoverable points where Harry's representatives explicitly threatened reputational Armageddon unless they commenced courting child trafficking networks selling bodies for mercenary enlistments on the spot, hoteliers mercifully terminated all discourse issuing unilateral cancellation. For God's sake man, we simply refused subjecting our community of hard-working professionals underwriting their struggling families' livelihoods toward morally hazardous environments overriding basic industry safety standards. The manager fumed while blasting open hotel suite windows, ostensibly to release pent-up vapors still accumulating from post-traumatic stress endured weathering Harry's aborted Rwandan Virunga Fauci Fest. When his goons directly menaced decapitating doormen's heads with machetes if we Welsh supplying mercenaries experienced training child soldiers in asymmetrical drugged-up ambush tactics against government troop convoys, well, refusing association with such unfathomable depravities suddenly transcended requests for reasonable accommodation into